How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today I got to talk about Omarosa down there in New Orleans, Louisiana for the NABJ Conference. Now, if you don't know what the NABJ is, that is a National Association of Black Journalists. Their whole thing, what they do, they have different conferences, different events all over the country to, get people from all over the country, like, TV reporters, news reporters, like newspaper reporters, anybody that's on TV dealing with the media, any kind of journalist that's black, they go here. They have symposiums, forums, and whatnot. The forum that Omarosa was scheduled to be on was one where she was talking about violence that has affected her family. Her father was murdered when she was a little girl, and her brother was murdered in 2011. So she was there to speak about that. Now, the host of the actual event, Mr. Ed Gordon, who used to be on BET, by the way, and he had a sensational interview with R. Kelly way back during the whole, improprieties, whatever he was accused of, whenever that was going on. I think his interview may have been before Touré's, the infamous, what do you mean by teenage girls? Remember that?
Do you like teenage girls?
When you say teenage, how are we talking?
Girls who are teenagers.
I think it may have been before or after that interview, but I digress. Now, Ed Gordon is here. He's moderating it or giving interview questions. But it was strange because it was a panel. It was Omarosa on the panel, but it was also three other people there. So I think everybody was supposed to talk and have a kind of like a round table type of discussion. It was not supposed to be just talking to Omarosa exclusively. And it was certainly was not supposed to be talking to her exclusively about Donald Trump. Right. I feel like they took the opportunity to just pretty much grill her and put her out there on Front Street and just try to make her defend everything that could possibly be offensive that Donald Trump said, rather than talking about anything dealing with her actual situation with her family, with her father being murdered and with her brother being murdered, which was what the purpose of the panel was. But what I want to do is show you a little bit of video from that. I'll try to post as much video from the situation as I can in the description box below. From what I've been able to see, it's probably about 15 minutes, maybe even a half hour of video of the whole situation. But I'm going to play the key part. Now, at a certain part in the panel, you have Ed Gordon get really upset because he's grilling her about Donald Trump over and over again. And Omarosa is kind of like getting irritated because it's like, okay, I did not come here exclusively for that. I came here to talk about, my family members, and we have a panel here. You're not talking to them. So Ed Gordon gets triggered and comes from behind the podium in an aggressive way. So what you're going to see right now is him do that, and then what happened afterwards. And we'll come back. We'll talk about it, and I'll talk about how I can relate to this. And you'll also, at a certain point, see a very familiar face. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
Sending a signal to this country that police don't have
suggesting that I should walk away.
I'm suggesting you hear the rest of I suggest you hear the rest of my question.
But I don't want to hear a
I'm doing my best.
I'm
doing my best. I tell you what. Now, I did my best to try to keep this as civil as possible.
But don't be aggressive.
Oh, no, I won't be aggressive. You didn't let me finish your question.
I'm never afraid. So ask your question, but don't lecture.
Here we go. I'll ask the question in my way.
Since we're doing it over
And here's
now,
my
let's
way.
walk around.
One will suggest that a man who has already given signal.
You have a problem with Donald Trump, have a problem with Donald Trump. If you want to ask about the loss of my father and my brother and the issues I've been through, ask about my story.
No, I'm
not going to
asking you
stand here
about
and
Donald
defend
Trump.
every single word or decision, but I will tell my story.
I'm allowing
Ask
you
a question
to
about me,
initially-
about my
Well,
brother,
is that what you
about
want
my
to talk
father.
about?
Yes, that's what they invited me to talk
Okay,
about.
and I
Okay,
was
so
told
ask
that
a
we were
question.
going to talk about both. Now you
So
tell
ask
me.
if you're dismissing
I
my
tell you what.
family story.
No, I did not
I
dismiss
just
it.
shared about my father and my son.
I did not
You immediately go to
Have you
Donald
heard my
Trump.
question?
And I
Have
think
you
that,
heard my question?
and the other thing you did was call this a mess. He said, since you got me in this
It is a
mess,
mess.
if you don't want to be here, don't be here. Don't disrespect the story of my father and my father. It's not a mess. This is my story. And if you have a problem with the loss of my brother,
rough. I said, please don't be too nice.
Okay, so you're able to see that. You see what's going on. Now, this is the problem with the black community right here. We cannot have civil discussion when we disagree. Now, not all, hashtag not all. Many of us, shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson, and shout out to BGS Itmore. I've been able to go on their platforms right here on YouTube and talk with all black men and have very civil discussion where we disagree. That is like a rare thing. That's why I enjoy going there, because it's like a breath of fresh air. Unfortunately, much of the black community is like the people that were here at the NABJ, people standing up, turning their backs to Omarosa when she was talking, and just really not giving her any kind of respect. You would see Ed Gordon be very snarky, kind of gay. I'm not, judging him if he's gay or whatever, but it was really feminine the way he was talking. That's not what men do. You could be gay or whatever, but be a man at the end of the day and treat her with respect as a woman. I did not like the way he was talking to her, making jokes and stuff about what's going on, and people are in the audience snickering, and it was really a mess. It was like, what is this? Are we on Comedy Central? Is it a roast? Or are we talking about some real issues? Are we talking about her father who got murdered when she was a little girl? I think she might have been right around 7 years old, or her brother who was murdered when, about 6 years ago. So are we talking about that? Or are we talking about politics? Are we talking about a way to try to make Omarosa look bad? I did not like it. And then him coming from behind the podium, that was really aggressive. It was like, you got Omarosa sitting right here, like in the chair, and then here comes Ed Gordon, like right here. This is inappropriate. Why would you put your crotch region right in her face as a man? You wouldn't do that. Now, Omarosa is married. I don't know where her husband was. If I was a husband, it would have been the problem. I would have got out the audience and said, yo, I need you to back up. And if he didn't, it would have been a little situation right there, because at the end of the day, you're threatening this woman. I don't care if you old, young, or whatever. Don't threaten people. Have a civil discussion. And he can say, well, I didn't really threaten her. I didn't say anything. Okay, that's just journalistic speak. That's lawyer speak. When you make an aggressive move like that, that's considered to be a threat, in my humble opinion. And if I'm wrong about that, let me know in the box. But it was really embarrassing to see that. Why not have a civil discussion? Why just focus so much on Donald Trump? You can ask a few questions here and there, but I feel like it was just set up for her to get abused. Now, some may ask, Omarosa, why even go to the NABJ? Why go to this racist organization, the National Association of Black Journalists? Why do that? Well, the thing is, part of her job at the White House is to speak to special interest groups, the LGBT, the Black, the Hispanic, the Asian. Not quite sure about white groups. I'm not quite sure if we're there yet, but I digress. Special interest groups, that is pretty much her lane. So why not respond to an invitation? Mind you, she did not reach out to the NABJ. They reached out to her. Why not respond to the invitation with a yes? That's part of your job anyway. It would just be part of what you're doing. So why not reach out? Okay. And then the thing is, the NABJ could have taken the opportunity to have a good conversation. And if there was anything that they wanted to relate to the president, they could have done that. But in her talk, which I put in the box below the full talk, she was saying that there's been a lot of black organizations that have been contacted that refuse to meet with the president. I mean, the most famous one we've seen is the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, right? They were slated to meet with the president, but then they gave up this big dossier, this big manifesto as to the reasons why they didn't want to go. And my thing was, okay, you wrote this whole big dossier as to the reason why you didn't want to go, but why not just take all those notes, all this, emotional diatribe to the White House, condense it into some questions, and then try to get something resolved? They had one meeting, and then they thought that nothing was going to come of it after that, because they felt like what they asked for did not get implemented. But guess what? Meetings with the president, you got to have them consistently, because if you think that the first meeting did not go right or things did not get followed through with, and the second meeting you address that. So what you could say is, we didn't get this, this, and this. So what's going on? How can we come to a resolution? How can we get this whole thing resolved? That's what you should do if you're a responsible person. But unfortunately, that's not what you're dealing with when you're dealing with these black organizations. And it's really unfortunate. And it makes you just want to give up. This is how we get treated in the black community for being a conservative. Not all, like I said, hashtag not all. Again, shout out to O'Shea Duke Jackson. Shout out to BGS Itmore. A lot of guys on there, they're cool people. But unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of us feel like the way that these people feel in the audience. And with that kind of mentality, that's going to ensure that the black community does not go forward. We'll keep having these same talks over and over again till we're blue in the face, and nothing will ever change until this whole groupthink mentality, this whole mentality of tar and feather, the heathen, this whole 1984 wrong think Orwellian kind of mentality, as long as that's still in place in the black community, we're not going to go anywhere. But maybe one day it'll be able to be broken. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got So what do you think? Do you think this whole situation was a setup from the beginning for Omarosa to be, played to be a fool, to look like she was just a racist or a racist collaborator, white supremacist collaborator, this, that, and the third? Do you think it would have been a good idea for her to decline the invitation? Now, if you think that way, understand this: part of her job is to meet with these kind of groups. So on one hand, if she declines the invitation, people can look at that and say, well, we wanted her to come to the NABJ, but she didn't do it. That's part of your job. You're not fulfilling your obligations. You're not fulfilling your duty. But on the other hand, they can say, well, we brought her here and we humiliated her. So what's the win for us over on the far left, the black victimhood left? But at the end of the day, I'm going to say this as I close. Omarosa handled herself very well, with class, with grace, even with kind of like being halfway threatened by the aggressive movements of Ed Gordon and the heckling from the audience and people turning their backs and stuff like that. She was still a very classy and graceful woman. She was very strong. One thing that I really admired was her ability to control her emotions. A lot of black men had a problem controlling their emotions. She was a black woman, and naturally women are more emotional than men, but she was able to be very calm, very poised, and control herself as a great human being. And I really appreciated that. She's beautiful on the inside and out. So I just want to say shout out to Omarosa. We all love you. Keep doing what you're doing. Do not let the haters get you down. So whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.